Guys, welcome to the 24/7 recruiting show. Right away, what we want to do is we want to take a look at the top players that are still in the transfer portal. Guys like Caden Proctor picked Alabama. We got Jason Zandamela still from USC. Cormani McClain is in there. Damian Martinez, Sam Brown, Jacoby Matthews. These guys pick schools. Keandre Lambert Smith, Jaden Rashada, and Jackson Howard. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring on my guy, transfer portal expert, insider, coaches, you name it. We're going to welcome Matt Zenich to the show.
I'm just good to be on with my guy, Carl.
Matt, what's going on? Hey, listen, I find myself refreshing your page all day, all news, whatever's going on. Matt, I want to ask you right away, as the transfer portal window winds down, what's the latest intel on some of the top uncommitted players?
Yeah, so probably a good place to start off is Jason Zandamela. So we have Jason as our number one overall uncommitted transfer at this point. He has already visited UCF. He's from Florida. It's been clear all along that is that interest on his end in returning to his home state after brief run at USC and originally signing with them. So visited UCF, and now in recent days, it has become very much clear that Florida is a team to watch to go along with UCF to the point that it is very much trending in the direction of him potentially, maybe even to the point of likely ending up with the Gators. It's not done yet, but it seems like it is trending in that direction with Jason and Florida.
What about a guy like Derek Harmon?
Yeah, so Derek is extremely popular right now. So top defensive lineman in the portal. He was extremely popular when he went in back during the winter to the point that visited Ohio State and Oregon. And his popular weight once again this go around. So he went in earlier this week and got in homes from schools like Florida State right away. His first on-campus visit was USC, arrived there, I want to say yesterday. He is going from USC to Colorado to visit Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes for Colorado's spring game. Then we'll be going with one of his former Michigan State teammates, Simeon Barrow, who's also popular right now, to Miami Monday to Wednesday. But there are other teams that are looking to be involved in that also. But those are the first three in terms of actual visits to the campuses for Derek Harmon.
Now, I get asked this question a lot. There's a lot of buzz on this guy, Damian Martinez.
I will say if Miami can get it locked up at some point in the near future. Miami has been the clear favorite since Damian first made the decision to go into the portal. He's taken visits to other schools, specifically Arizona, Mississippi State, and then canceled a visit that he had scheduled to Kentucky. He is currently on a visit to Miami right now, and I don't think it should come as a surprise to anybody if that visit ultimately ends with him locking things in with the Hurricanes. And even before this visit to campus, he had two in-home visits with Miami where they had gone to visit him. But they definitely continue to be the clear favorite for Damian.
One of the questions I get asked in the transfer portal a lot, when a guy that's an NFL prospect like Jason Zandamela is on the offensive line, he's at USC, we hear Florida schools consistently in his possible destination points. Is this just a case of a guy wanting to be closer to home, maybe getting a little homesick? The West Coast was really far away for him.
It has definitely come up since the beginning of the process with him. And Jason's obviously a 2024 recruit, was a top 50 overall recruit nationally that was briefly at USC. And right when he went into the portal, the main thing that had been coming up on my end, and it's the same thing for Chris Hummer and the information he was getting, was to keep an eye on him getting closer to home.
Two guys that I continue to get a bunch of calls because everybody wants to know where their recruiting is at and what's going on. Are you surprised that Cormani McClain, Jacoby Matthews, still have not found homes yet or haven't decided where they're moving forward with yet?
Yeah, I wouldn't say surprised. So there are some players that have talent that have obviously just gone in the portal the last couple of days, like Dylan Edwards, for example, where it's just early enough in the process that it would be unrealistic to a certain degree to think that the decision's just going to be made that quickly. But with Cormani and Jacoby, obviously they've been in there for a little while now, but without with Cormani, for example, without throwing him under the bus or anything like that, teams just being open, frank, candid have gotten mixed feedback on him coming out of the Colorado experience, his year there, and it's led to some teams, even with Cormani having the talent that he has, even with him being the number one ranked corner in last year's recruiting class, it's led to a lot of teams that I've talked to being reluctant to pursue him, and really to a point where they're not planning on pursuing him. So that's one where I wish I had more information for you, but I really have no idea at this point where Cormani is going to end up. Like if you try to play the handicapping game with me right now and try to get me to put like betting odds on most likely landing spot or anything like that, I really would have no idea whatsoever who would even be deserving of the best odds right now with Cormani.
If there was one thing that I haven't liked about the recent changes of NIL, transfer portal, the amount of pressure that coaches are under, are guys like Cormani McClain, who in the past, you give them some time to grow up. Questions. I really do hope, though, that somebody finds or gives Cormani an opportunity to play, and that he finds a home that he can really thrive at, because he does have a bunch of ability. He's a very young guy, and I love to see when young people get an opportunity to make things right.
There's no question whatsoever that Cormani has talent. You saw flashes last year at Colorado. And the thing is, regardless of any issues that they dealt with at Colorado throughout the course of the last year with Cormani, or anything that Cormani was working through there, we have seen, and Carl, you know this, there are so many times that there are things that happen that are going on with an 18, 19-year-old, and ultimately those kids mature and are able to get themselves to a good point, maximize the talent that they have, and ultimately have not only a successful college career, but end up making it to the NFL level and be able to accomplish all of the things that they want to accomplish. And hopefully that's something that ends up happening for Cormani also. And again, it's not like that would be anything unprecedented in terms of being able to bounce back from some of this stuff coming out of the Colorado experience and being able to turn a corner. It's just right now the ball is in Cormani's court. It's on him to be able to continue to mature and move past some of that stuff and just find a way to maximize the talent that he does have.
Absolutely. Guys, you got to follow Matt on Twitter if you want to know everything that's going on. Coaches' movements, transfer portal updates, wall-to-wall team coverage, recruiting rankings, transfer portal updates. Give Matt a follow. 24/7 Sports, unbelievable source of information with Matt Zenitz. Guys, we're going to move forward now. NFL draft started yesterday with the first round. Second and third round is today. I'm going to bring in my colleague, Smoke Dixon. Smoke has worked in the National Football League, played at the University of Alabama, has also been in the CFL, has been a general manager in the Big Ten. Smoke, give me your biggest surprise yesterday from the NFL draft.
Biggest surprise was 13 consecutive offensive players taken. Top 4 of them were quarterbacks. And then you get to the 6 quarterbacks getting drafted overall. And then the elephant in the room is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, everybody looked at the Atlanta Falcons situation, seeing Terry Fontenot and Arthur Blank having a conversation. I believe that conversation was what social media typically does, or what people usually do when they don't hear things. They start running with a lot of stuff. But from my knowledge, they had conversation about potentially taking a quarterback. Not that quarterback, but a potential quarterback. And yesterday, that call, you and I sat down and we're on yesterday, we talked about some bullet points that you want to have while you're going into the process of the draft day one. You want to go in and have a conversation with the brass. And brass typically consists of owner, head coach, general manager. And if you have a franchise quarterback, you want to pull your franchise quarterback into that conversation as well, too. Kirk Cousins, they just gave $140 million, a lot of it guaranteed. I don't believe that conversation was conveyed in terms of Michael Penix would be the guy. But if we peel the onion back and you look at it from a front office standpoint, and I'm in Atlanta, and you're at the 8th pick overall, you know, going through the entire year that there's going to be 6 quarterbacks taken. You and I have come on several times and said this is one of the richest quarterback drafts in the last 10 to 15 years. So if you've done your due diligence and done your work on it in terms of the research, you understand that the Chargers weren't going to take a quarterback. The Giants were going back and forth in terms of taking a quarterback. Tennessee seems like they were fit to stay with Levis as the quarterback. So at worst, you're going to get one of the 6 that you wanted. Now, when you're in Atlanta, the last quarterback that was in Atlanta that everyone raved about and had the city on smash was Michael Vick. Now, if you're a general manager and you understand your quarterback room and Kirk Cousins is in there, why would you want to bring in a Michael Penix? And I think Michael Penix fits perfectly, but you want to get that information across to the camp of Kirk Cousins before you even do that. So now you don't lose trust, because I'm guaranteeing you right now, Kirk Cousins doesn't trust Raheem. He doesn't trust the front office. He's on straight, I'm going to get everybody else mode, because that's who Kirk Cousins is.
But Smoke, I got a question for you here. If I give you $180 million and $100 million of that is fully guaranteed, do I owe you that? You're not the coach, you're not the owner, you're not the GM. Do I owe you that conversation? Is that something that I feel like I have to do after you cash in my $100 million?
Absolutely, because you understand that football is a relationship business, and football is a trust. The trust that I'm going to do exactly what I say I'm going to do when you ask me to do it. You asked me to come down to Atlanta. Yeah, I took the money, but I could have gone to other places. I came there because I trust you as a coach to do exactly what you said you were going to do. And as an organization, just come and see me first so we can have that conversation, because I am now a part of the brass. I'm a franchise quarterback. You owe me that explanation of what you're going to do when you do that.
Smoke, let's pivot here from the NFL draft a little bit, and let's get into the transfer portal. The transfer portal has been all the rage. You and I have had hundreds of conversations in terms of roster building and should you build through high school? Can you build through the portal? Can you have sustainable success? What are the hard truths right now? Let's look at this graphic first. Right now we have 497 scholarship transfers, up 47% from 2023. 25% of these guys are repeat transfers. That's something that's gone way up because of the rule changes. 48% are leaving Power 5 schools. The transfer portal's at an all-time high. We got tons of guys, Smoke, and we talk about this a lot, that are not going to find schools moving forward. They've probably played their last down of college football. What are the hard truths, Smoke, about the transfer portal that players need to understand?
Well, when you look at it, the intention of the transfer portal was to help a young player out that, coaching change. If you get in a toxic situation where you don't believe that you're going to evolve and get developed as a player, give yourself an opportunity to go somewhere else. But the hard truth of it is, your number one intention of going to college was to get further your education, not to go into the NFL, because it's only 1% cause you and I both know that's going to the NFL. So if you're banking on, I'm going to bet on myself, you don't want to gamble on your future of not being able to finish your college education. And the hard truth is, most of these young people that go into the portal are back home in their communities with no education at all and trying to find something to do rather than finish up in the school that they were at. And don't worry about, hey, I'm going to the NFL or I'm playing. Your intention is to graduate and become a student athlete first, athlete second.
Who's having those conversations with guys, though? Because 90% of these guys are making moves because they think it's improving their draft stock or their ability to go to the NFL. I've talked to players that I felt like you should absolutely know that you're not on the NFL's radar and you're making a big mistake by walking away from your education. What should a player do? Who should a player go talk to?
Well, the first person I would always talk to is a person that helped me get to school, just like yourself. You understand that the possibility of going to the NFL is not very high. Second, you need to go back and read through your national letter of intent that you signed. And when you sit down and you have those conversations with, it should be with your head coach on those exit meetings. It should be, coach, you can't push me out. I'm going to leave when I feel like leaving, and I'm here to further my education. And you can't kick a person out of school if they're a bad football player, because you're not signing you're not signing a scholarship based on performance. You're signing a scholarship based on you being there and being academically qualified to be eligible to play in the NCAA.
What happens to these guys that go in the portal and they never find another school to pick them up again? What do you see happen to guys in this situation?
Coach, those are the same guys that are calling you looking for opportunities to go somewhere. And they're just flat out on the street in a place where I call it's a black hole of nothing, because they've given up their scholarships. Like you said, there's 3,500 non-scholarship athletes out there that were scholarship athletes for the most part. And we know right now there aren't 3,500 scholarships available. So you're giving away a sure thing for the unknown. So they're just out there floating in the cloud, just like you have on your phone. They're nowhere. And it's a sad case that most of these young people going back to their community are returning the same way that they left, with not the piece of paper in their hand and not an opportunity to further their education or get their family in a better situation through their education.
Do the players understand their rights, Smoke? Do they understand if a coach calls them in the office, a position coach, coordinator, head coach, GM, whoever, do they understand their rights if they feel like they're being forced out of their scholarship?
You know, we'll sitting in on a lot of those interviews and those exit meetings, I'm going to say a great percentage of those guys don't understand what their rights are within their scholarship. And they just go off of, sure, like we talk about it all the time, emotion. And they go off the quote of, I'm going to bet on myself. Well, you've already bet on yourself and you won. So why go back in the casino with house money already, double down with no true opportunity? So no, they don't understand what's in their letter of intent when they sign it, nor do they understand their rights as a college athlete. I got a story for you, Carl. We're sitting in the office, and one of the guys, we want for him to say, hey, listen, we're leaving. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to transfer to school A, B, or C. The young man looked myself dead in the face, looked the head coach dead in the face, and said, Coach, I love it here. I'm not leaving. And on the end of it, you don't have any rules of getting that player out, because he shows up on time to his workouts. He's academically eligible. He hasn't done anything for him to have his scholarship removed from him from the university. So until you remove yourself from the university or college, you can't be moved unless you academically are eligible. You do something criminal that puts you out of school.
What do you have to say for guys that say, but Smoke, I want to bet on myself?
Well, Carl, the hard thing to do in betting on yourself is it's not sustainable for being a gambler in terms of having a true occupation. You and I both know that. Guys that gamble have extra money and extra fluff. You betting on yourself is not a good percentage of winning. The gambling is over. You have a sure thing. It's called a scholarship. No reason to step out and do that. And if you're an NFL player or an NFL prospect, I guarantee you there's not a coach in America that's allowing you to come sit down in front of him and tell you that he wants to leave. You're doing everything in your power to make sure that they stay in that building. For the most part, you got to understand who you are as a player. If you're an NFL player, do as you like. But if you're just a good college player, sit down, get your education, and move on.
What I'm going to tell all the young guys is this. If a coach calls you into the office, he can't take your scholarship. Now, he can take your spot on the football team, but they cannot put you out of school and leave you without the ability to get your education. So they are anticipating your knee-jerk reaction to be filled with emotion. So you get mad, you leave, you go into the portal before you talk to your parents, before you talk to your high school coach. You feel like you're a grown man at that point. Don't get tricked out of your position. They cannot take your scholarship from you and put you out of school unless you go start it by entering the portal. And a lot of them are really dependent on you to become very emotional.
Yeah, Coach Carl, when a young man says I'm leaving and here in the portal, me building a roster and making sure that I have 85 scholarship and I've oversigned, I'm thanking you for giving me the ability to sign another one. You just did me a favor. You sticking around, I got to find a whole nother ways of getting underneath this 85 that I've oversigned on signing day already.
Smoke, Jared Verse, Chop Robinson, Braden Fish, Jahmyr Gibbs are guys that use the portal to their advantage. They ended up in great situations, leaving situations and going other places, and it upped their NFL draft prospect status. How do you feel about those type of decisions, and which current players in the transfer portal do you think could have similar success to them?
Well, when you look at all those guys right there that you just brought up, all of those guys transferred, either made a lateral move or transferred up with the understanding of they had a why. Let's go to Jared Verse first. He was at Albany. You and I both evaluated him and saw that this young man was playing outside of that conference and that style of play and that level of play. So he leveled up and went to Florida State. Chop Robinson, when you look at Chop felt like he wasn't getting properly developed. His position coach left, Coach Zook left, and went on to the XFL at that time. So he felt like he needed to go somewhere else to hit a restart button and get better. You go down, you look at Jahmyr Gibbs, and Jahmyr Gibbs was a guy that was at Georgia Tech. Now, he used Georgia Tech as saying, you know what, I can play at this level, but I can have an opportunity to go to University of Alabama and play with a bunch of first rounders. I can now show the world, and I'm on a stage every single Saturday to show you my skill set is in an elite level to be the first running back taken in this draft. Now you go to Braden Fish. You've seen a guy that was at a group of 5 school that outplayed that level and said, I'm going to now bet on myself, reasonably understanding that he had a place to go, meaning Florida State, and you saw his draft stock go through the roof. Now, when you look at the other guys that have an opportunity to do that, you have Damien Martinez, again, a running back. And like we said on the portal show, he's one of the guys, these are one of the positions that you can leave in the springtime and get immediate impact and play, because the running back position, there's only about 3 or 4 runs in the system, and he's played long enough to understand pass protection and also be able to be effective in the pass game. You got Dylan Edwards, a young man that is a positionless player because he has the ability to be a mismatch and a matchup issue outside of the confines of what your play is. Then you go to the end of it and you look at a guy like By Joe, which is a developmental young player that needs time on task. So when you look at him from a front office standpoint and the talent evaluator standpoint, you see length, freakish athleticism, but he does not understand how to play the game yet. So you can go and have time with that young man, spend a lot of quality time with him, develop his craft, get him stronger, teach him the game, how to use his hands, how to play with leverage, proper technique on the get off, and how to play the run and become an effective pass rusher by using his length, explosive in the first step get off, but also creating that long arm speed to power rush that he's going to develop later on. So you have 3 different guys, 2 guys that experience, and 1 guy that you're betting on being a raw, talented young man that you can get into your program and develop along the way.
Smoke, we want to thank you for joining us. Guys, make sure that you like, share, subscribe to the 24/7 Sports YouTube page. Follow us on YouTube for all the update information on transfer portal, recruiting, and college football. We're going to roll right now to our next block, and we have a video coming up here of Coach Prime commenting on the transfer portal and the roster at the University of Colorado. Smoke, while we wait for that thing to come up on Coach Prime, let's just keep it moving along in terms of transfer portal. We were talking earlier to Zenich, and he discussed that even the grad transfers have to now be within that window. How does that change things for the grad transfers?
Well, being a grad transfer before, you were just a free agent. You weren't worried about any dates or any deadlines to hit, because you knew once you graduated, you were going to just be a free agent and being able to go to any school that you wanted to. Now, for me, I don't think that rule makes sense, because once you have used up all of your eligibility in terms of graduating, why are you still underneath the NCAA ruling of having to go back in the transfer portal. To me, once you graduate, you've now removed yourself from that. And we've used that when I was at the University of Maryland as just the easiest way to how to get a guy in, right? You have a young man that not in the portal, you know that he's graduating, you have an upper hand. I can call Coach Reed and say, Coach Reed, how many hours is he say, you know what, Smoke, he's graduating this spring. Now that's just another way of saying, hey, listen, you don't necessarily have to go in the portal. You can just come on and play. Or for an existing, you have an example we had a guy, Michael Purcell. Michael Purcell was at Elon. He graduated because he used the pandemic and the COVID year to graduate. He graduated, enrolled at Duke. Things did not work well for him there because they had him playing out of position. Got back into the portal because, again, he was a graduate, became a free agent, and now we got him at the University of Maryland, and he started a few games for him at center. So to me, that's the advantage of graduating and finishing up school, not being able to throw your name into the portal and have that now May 30th deadline.
Are guys who transfer in the spring at a smaller disadvantage? Because we know that most guys in the transfer portal that don't get to participate in spring practices, positions are typically won in the spring. So if you didn't get to participate in spring practice on where you're coming from, are you at a disadvantage going into fall camp?
Tremendous disadvantage. Unless you're a guy like we talked about, Damian Martinez, that's coming over and playing the running back position. You got to come in and you have to understand and get familiar with the entire offense of your offensive player. Like just look at it. If you're an offensive lineman, you got to come in and you have to know how to play with the guy to the left of you and to the right of you. You have to understand the offense, timing, terminology. You got to get in shape because most likely you aren't in proper football shape to go in and play. Then you got to get enrolled. If you're in a graduate program, get inside of the graduate program. So there's a lot of things that you have to work against instead of just coming in. If I was in the wintertime, go through winter training, go through spring ball, you get the full gamut of the playbook and understanding playing, timing, you get comfortable, you're in the city that you know, you're in classes that you know, you've come familiar with your teammates, you're ingrained now in the locker room, and you now can feel like a true collegiate athlete instead of being rushed and pushed forward in the spring semester.
Smoke, thank you, my brother, for coming on right now. We're going to toss to Coach Prime in his video, and we're going to get into the unit.
You're losing some guys to the portal. What are you looking forward to reestablish? What position groups are you hunting in the transfer portal?
I wish you guys do a little more homework when you start talking about the portal and understand what we're losing. What are we losing? I got time today. What are we losing?
Potential starters and
Potential.
depth.
Where?
Tight end, running back.
You haven't been watching practice, huh? Amen. We're good. We're good. I trust the recruiting team. I trust our coaches. And please have some faith in me. We're good.
Adam, my God, thank you for coming on, Adam Mustang Tiger. We're going to get straight into it. I've talked to Coach Prime this week. I know you've been at practice pretty much throughout the whole spring. He says, don't worry. What does he know that the people at large don't know?
Well, everybody should know that every transfer window there's been since Coach Prime took over in Boulder, the Buffaloes have gotten better. And so I think that's a little bit where the frustration comes in, because especially early in those transfer windows, you're going to see the outgoing guys and then you fill it back up. And that process takes a little bit longer. So there's kind of this reaction, and certainly you'd like to have Dylan Edwards in this program. I think you'd like to have Shimon Mateer at tight end in this program. Savion Washington at tackle would be a nice depth piece. But what he was saying there is pretty true in the sense of I've proven now in the previous 3 transfer windows that this recruiting staff that I've assembled is going to get this roster better overall. And so just give it a minute. Take a deep breath.
Adam, on Monday, the Colorado Buffaloes received a commitment from former 2022 4-star Dylan Hayden at the running back position. How much did his commitment kind of make some of the other guys like Wilkerson and Edwards potentially want to go in the portal?
I think it might have had a little bit more to do with Wilkerson because he was probably not going to be the starter anyway, and is somebody that was maybe on the outside looking in. We even saw after their pass scrimmage this past Saturday, Charlie Offerdahl was anointed the number 2 running back. He's a walk-on, and so I think a little bit more with Wilkerson. But you see, there's no bad blood between Coach Prime. He sent kind of a congratulatory tweet to him after he transferred. With Dylan Edwards, I think this has been in the works a little bit with NIL and some of the other opportunities. Now, tampering is something that's happened across the board in college football recruiting right now. And so I'm pretty sure he hopped in the portal knowing that there was another opportunity out there that would pay in that sense. And he's a real playmaker, maybe not a 4-down back, but somebody that is one of those. Like if you talk about top playmakers in space in college football, Dylan Edwards is part of that conversation. And so that's definitely not a good defection, but also one as Colorado kind of fills in the gap with a Dalen Hayden. And it sounds like Amos from Rashad Amos from Miami of Ohio is most likely to transfer to Colorado at the running back position as well.
Spring game this weekend. Sellout crowd expecting again. A lot of activities going around the University of Colorado. Who are some of the recruits on campus and transfers that the University of Colorado will hope to have as visitors this weekend?
Yeah, unfortunately, the forecast is not cooperating with the spring game. It sounds like it's going to be low 40s, rain throughout the spring game. So it's almost worse than last year when they had snow, because the snow doesn't quite stick to you the same way that the rain does. But yeah, they're going to have Zach Owens, an offensive line transfer from Clemson, on campus. I mentioned Rashad Amos. I think that would be an important get at the running back position with Dylan Edwards and Savion Wilkerson moving on to fortify the depth there. In Michigan State defensive line transfer, Derek Harmon is a guy that you can plug in at nose tackle. He can take up both of those A gaps, and he's not going to be a big stat getter, but would be something that would really help this defense. And it will allow guys like Shane Cokes to play a little bit more free in a different technique.
Adam, I'm going to tell you what, when I was at the spring game a year ago, it was snowing, so it couldn't be much colder and the weather couldn't be much different than that. And everybody still had a great time. Adam, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next time. Guys, make sure for more Colorado coverage, visit buffstampede.com for the latest on Buffs football and recruiting for my man, Adam Mustang Tiger. And that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you for enjoying the show.